Greetings, and welcome back to LA Quill. There comes a moment in every writer's journey that feels less like turning a page and more like stepping off a cliff. You spent months, maybe years, weaving a world from nothing. Crafting characters and conjuring magic systems, and sculpting kingdoms and battles, romances and revelations. You've typed "the end," stared at the words in disbelief, and felt something between triumph and exhaustion. And then, inevitably, the question comes, now what? Finishing a draft feels like victory, but the fourth rule of writing a novel is one that truly separates dreamers from storytellers. And the fourth rule is this: at some point you must send your story into the world. It sounds simple, almost ceremonial, but for many writers, especially those journeying through fantasy for the first time, it is the most terrifying step of all. We rarely talk about the fear that looms at the end of a manuscript. It's easy to romanticize the writing process. The candlelit desk, the notebook full of maps, the late-night bursts of inspiration. But when the book is finished, when your characters are resting and your magic system holds together, and your final plot twist is in place, you are faced with a different kind of battle. This one has no dragons, no swords, no prophecies. It is only you, your book, and a world that may or may not be ready to read it. And that fear? It's real. It's powerful. It's universal. Even the most experienced authors will tell you that hitting send on a manuscript sends a cold shock straight down the spine. But there is glory in that fear, and necessity, because stories are not alive until they are shared. For many writers, the first option that comes to mind is traditional publishing. It carries a certain mythic quality. The idea of walking into a bookstore and seeing your name on a shelf, of signing a contract with a well-known imprint, of joining the lineage of authors who shaped your love of fantasy in the first place. Traditional publishing can feel like a rite of passage, a validation, a moment of being seen, and for good reason. Working with agents and publishers can be an extraordinary experience. You gain professional editing and marketing support, cover design, and a team whose goal it is to help your story reach its audience. But crossing the threshold into that world requires another kind of quest: the search for the right gatekeepers. If you decide to pursue traditional publishing, your journey begins with research. Fortunately, we live in an age where nearly every agent and publisher has a digital footprint. Fantasy writers can simply search for agencies specializing in the genre, small presses that champion niche subgenres, or large houses that accept unagented submissions. The research stage isn't glamorous, but it is crucial. Not every publisher accepts every kind of fantasy. Some want epic sagas, and some prefer young adult magical academies or dark romantasy. Some want the next sprawling multi-book series, and others want self-contained stories. The key is alignment, finding the people who are already excited about the kind of story you want to tell. And then you reach the part many writers dread: the submission guidelines. These guidelines can feel pretty rigid, sometimes even strange. One publisher wants the first 3 chapters. Another publisher wants 10 pages. Another wants a 1-page synopsis plus a query letter that somehow conveys your book's tone and plot and themes and emotional impact without spoiling every twist. But here's the absolute truth. These guidelines matter. I know they seem odd, but they matter. Following them is not optional. It's not negotiable. You have to do it. Okay? It's not something that you can sort of get close to. Publishers receive mountains of submissions. They use the guidelines to filter out writers who aren't ready or who don't respect the process. When you follow them precisely, you're communicating something important. I am taking this seriously and I am ready for this industry. All of that matters. And that small act of professionalism can open more doors than you might realize. So if you're going the route of traditional publishing, Read the guidelines and follow them specifically. Now let's talk about the emotional side of this stage, because it deserves just as much attention. When you send your manuscript to agents or publishers, you are offering up something deeply personal. Not just a story, but a part of yourself. And the possibility of rejection can feel brutal. But rejection is not a verdict on your worth as a writer. It isn't even a verdict on your book. Sometimes a manuscript doesn't fit a publisher's list that year. Sometimes they already signed a similar project. Sometimes the market is shifting or they're seeking something very specific. Rejection is a data point, not a prophecy. What matters is that your book is in motion. It is traveling beyond your desk, beyond your laptop, beyond your private world where only you and your characters exist. Movement is success, even when the responses are slow. And then there is the other path, the path of self-publishing. In some ways, it's more daunting. In others, it's far more empowering. Self-publishing gives you full control over your book. Its cover, its edits, its formatting, its release schedule, its marketing, the final price. You become the captain of the ship, the architect, and the ambassador. You are responsible for hiring editors and choosing artists and coordinating layout and ultimately funding the entire process. And yes, this can feel like an enormous responsibility. But for many authors, especially those in the fantasy genre, self-publishing is a powerful frontier. It allows you to publish stories that may be too niche or too strange or too daring or too sprawling for more traditional houses. It allows you to build your readership directly. It allows you to write the stories you love without waiting for permission. Self-publishing, however, does demand excellence. Readers deserve a book that looks, feels, and reads like a professional publication. That means strong editing and strong formatting, a cover that reflects the tone of the story and the expectations of the genre. When fantasy readers browse, they make instant judgments based on cover design, because in this genre, the cover is part of the storytelling. A self-published author who invests in quality can absolutely stand toe-to-toe with traditionally published books. Many have. Some have even changed the landscape of fantasy literature entirely. The key difference is that in self-publishing, you have to wear every hat, all of them. And the success of your book depends entirely on the decisions you make. There's no backup. So which path is the right one? Traditional or self-published? The answer is as individual as the stories we write. Some authors thrive under the guidance of a publishing team. Others thrive with the freedom of independence. What matters most is that you choose a path that aligns with your personality, your goals, and your relationship with your craft. If you want collaboration and structure, traditional publishing might be your home. If you want control and creative freedom, self-publishing might be your sanctuary. There is no wrong choice, only the choice that allows your story to move forward. No matter which road you choose, the hardest part remains the same. You must send your book out. You must let it leave the safety of your hard drive. You must let it belong to others. The novel is not truly complete until it has reached a reader. Until then, it is potential waiting to be realized. And yes, taking that step requires courage. But every great fantasy story teaches us that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act despite it. When you release your story into the world, you are honoring every hour you spent creating it. You are honoring your characters and your world and your magic and your message. You are saying, this story deserves to live outside of me. The truth is, publishing often takes longer than writing. It is slow, unpredictable, and full of waiting. But waiting is not failure. Waiting is the space where possibility grows. During that time, you write your next book. You build the next world. You sharpen the tools of your craft. Because once you publish one book, you are no longer simply a writer. You're an author in motion. And motion is powerful. So this is the fourth rule of writing a novel. Finished stories must move. They must travel. They must leap into the unknown. Whether you choose to query an agent, submit to a small press, or forge your own path through self-publishing, your responsibility is the same. Release the story. Let it breathe. Let it become. And that's our tale from LA Quill today. Share in the comments whether you're leaning towards traditional publishing, self-publishing, or somewhere in between, and what scares or excites you most about taking that leap. Until next time, may your stories always be magical.